Hey, what's up? It's Comic95 the Savior, and for this video I want to revisit the topic of friends in Japan, or making friends in Japan, but I kind of want to talk about it from a different perspective and also put a lot of my own experience and my own friendships into this. So I've both read comments of people talking about how they don't want to be friends with Japanese people, or how they don't have, Japanese friends, and you see it all the time in forums here in Japan. I've received emails, people asking about my Japanese friends, and just everything else, and so I figured it would be worth it to talk about this in a video. So to answer your question, yes, I do have Japanese friends. As I've mentioned before on my channel, I kind of vaguely talked about them before and their dating history and crazy stories they've told me and advice they've come to me for about dating foreign men here in Japan or abroad, but I don't normally talk about my personal life as well as my relationships. Like, I just recently started talking about my dating on Patreon, but before I started doing Patreon, I didn't talk about my dating life on YouTube publicly. And even with my ex-fiance, I told you guys very little about him besides my video on how we met each other. You basically only got about maybe 2 or 3 hours of content over the course of our whole 3-4 year relationship. So yeah. What was I going to say? So anyway, I wanted to talk about being friends with Japanese people. And this is something that I never said in another video. And you have to understand that by being abroad, and specifically living in a different country like Japan, being in Asia, very different from America. I'm speaking from an American perspective because that is my nationality. Asia is very different from the US. It's very different from, I hate using the term Western, but whatever. Asian culture is very different from Western culture. It's true. And specifically, it's very different from the US. And you have to factor that in. It's not just a matter of Japan's, outsider concept where, there's a them and us, foreigners versus Japanese, but rather the whole concept of what a friend really is. Japanese people don't view friends the way that we view friends in the US. The reality is all relationships are transactional to a degree. And you can try to sugarcoat it and paint it however you want to, but all relationships are transactional. We talk to people, we listen to people to get something out of it. We get entertainment out of stories from our friends. We get comfort out of stories for our friends. We get money, we get support, we have seat fillers for parties and weddings, etc. And if you don't want to look at it that way, you can choose to turn a blind eye to it. But when you really think about it, if your friends decided they were not going to do anything for you, they were no longer going to tell you their secrets, no longer going to tell you about, the latest memes, or make you laugh, or comfort you when you're feeling depressed and cheer you up, you wouldn't be friends with them anymore. There'd be no benefit to you. Everything that you're doing is to get something out of it. And if you think, oh no, I'm being selfless, I do everything, no one ever listens to me, you're lying to yourself. Because the fact that you're even saying that shows that you want somebody to do what you're doing. So you're doing it in the hopes of getting something back. That's the concept of reaping what you sow, karma, whatever you want to call it. You're ultimately wanting something for your deeds. Do you get what I mean? So I want to clarify that first. But you have to understand that being in Japan, their concept of friendship is the same but different. In the US, we make friends to provide us with company. In Japan, they make friends to provide them with business and social status. And you can even say company too, but in a very different way. Japanese people do not have deep conversations like how we do in America with our friends. When you are friends with people, we normally like to hang out outside of work. We like to hang out after school, and we talk about our personal lives. We build connections and deepen our friendship with one another through socializing with each other and doing things together. For example, for women, the way that women normally make friends is by sharing secrets. We gossip with each other. We talk to each other. We tell stories. We relate to each other. We comfort each other. We, wipe away tears. We give advice. That's how women make friends. Men make friends by doing things together. They invite each other to go out and play, or to watch a game, or to go drinking together, etc. Well, here in Japan, think of it this way. Everybody makes friends the way that men do, except unlike men, the whole concept, because men do this too, just not as much as women, or not the way that women do. Their stories are more straightforward. Japanese people, whether male or female, they don't have deep, long, drawn-out stories with their friends where they tell their whole life story, and they're not very open people. The problem is that as an American, this is something really hard to accept and understand, because for us, our real friends are our getaway. They're our escape where we can tell our real feelings and share how we really feel. Whereas our associates and coworkers, we would avoid saying this stuff too. But the problem is, in Japan, there's no on and off switch. It stays off. You literally keep everything to yourself. Thus, when you're hanging out with people who are your friends, they don't feel like they're your friends. You feel like there's a layer that you haven't, cut down and gotten to. But the reality is, you are that person's friend. They're just not being friends with you the way that you want to be friends with them, because it's not your culture. This is a different culture. They don't make friends that way. So I think a lot of you guys do have Japanese friends. You just don't realize they're your friend. So to explain that better, I think of my own friends. When you have Japanese friends, like, you don't hang out with them every day, sometimes not even every week. You don't talk to them on the phone all the time. You don't text all the time. You don't hang out all the time. Your friends are busy and they do their own thing. People literally hang out with their friends to provide them with comfort. So it's normally going to be going out drinking, or I don't know, going shopping, like doing something small like that, going out to, some dessert bar or something if you're a girl, like hanging out with your girls to go get parfaits or something small like that. People don't call their friends for every little thing. People don't confide in their friends, their personal feelings towards work or their spouse, etc. It'll make your Japanese friends super uncomfortable because they're not used to having conversations like that. Conversations with Japanese friends, and not just associates, friends, is usually very shallow. Things like, it's really cold today, or it's snowing, isn't it? Or, oh, did you see this? Oh, yeah, pray for this, or whatever. Like, this, whatever is going on. Like, that's the way that it is. People will talk lightly about politics. People will talk lightly about celebrities, lightly about the weather. Just basic everyday conversation that we would have in America as icebreakers. But it never gets beyond that point. In Japan, you generally just talk. You just have regular conversation. It doesn't get very deep. There's not a lot of deep secret telling and constant calling and constant hanging out. Like, that'll make your friends feel super uncomfortable and just weirded out. And to be honest, the only Japanese people that you will meet that are okay with doing that, talking all the time, hanging out all the time, it's normally going to be somebody that spent their whole life being a shut-in and they're grateful to have a real normal friend according to your culture, and or somebody that's had a ton of experience being abroad or that wants to go abroad, and thus they're either using you for your English, ability to gain some of their own, or two, they've really become open-minded from being abroad and they simply prefer the American, or I'm using American because of my culture, whatever country you're from, the American way of making friends and talking, etc. So it's a really hard pill to swallow and hard to get used to, but don't be so hard on yourself about making friends. You probably do have a lot of Japanese friends, you just don't realize it. And you also have to learn and understand boundaries, because as a foreigner, initially you're not going to realize that you're talking too much and sharing too much, because you think that they're okay with it because they're still hanging out with you and they didn't leave and run away yet. But really, you're probably making people really uncomfortable if when they hang out with you, you're going on a rant complaining about your boyfriend or your girlfriend or your wife or whatever the case is. Because if you don't look at it this way, if when you hang out with Japanese people, they're not talking about the same thing as you, they're not the ones that start the conversation about that subject and go into detail like how you're doing, you're probably making everyone really uncomfortable and you should probably stop. So yeah, truth hurts. I'm not here to sugarcoat it and make it sound sweet. I'm being blunt and honest with you. You're going to have to get used to changing the way that you communicate with people. And when you need that fixed, because I honestly do not support the Japanese way of making friends at all, but I have to accept this is the country that I chose to reside in. I have to get used to it. What I do is I hang out with foreigners. I talk to you guys here on YouTube. That's why I made this whole channel and venting and ranting and doing journals, etc. So let me rephrase that. This channel is not made for journals. I started doing journals more because you guys enjoyed them, and of course it's good for me too because I get to let out my stress. But this channel is really made for giving advice. But you get what I mean. I make these journals for people like you guys. But sorry, my nose is itchy. I just want to say to you that you probably have more friends than what you think you really do, but you have to accept that you're in a different country, it's a different culture, and you have to learn how to make friends the way that they do. And if you're trying to enforce the way that you're used to having friends, you're never going to end up with friends. So don't get me wrong, I'm not telling you to accept people using you for free English or something. Don't do that per se. But I am saying, if you are expecting your friends to be people that gossip to you and tell you that their husband is beating them, or go into detail about how whatever, like, it's just not going to happen. It's going to be very few people. It's not going to work out for you. You will be lonely and miserable, and you are going to be one of those foreigners that book that flight home. So again, it's not ideal. I don't make the rules, I play by them. I'm just sharing that with you. Don't be so hard on yourself about making friends, but do also keep in mind that beyond just the way that people make friends, you have to consider what your personality is like. I'm not telling you to change yourself, but I am going to be real with yourself. If you expect to make friends here, you want to live here long term, you're going to have to assimilate to a certain degree, because the reality is, a lot of you guys that think, oh, Japanese people or whatever, they think that about you too. Some of you are super loud, ghetto, obnoxious, you're completely unaware of how inappropriate your behavior is, and you don't care about learning the language, you don't care about learning the culture, etc. It's difficult to be friends with you. If you can't speak Japanese, how do you expect to make Japanese friends? Not everyone here can speak English. And even for the ones that do speak English and or that want to learn, not everyone is willing to deal with somebody that not only can't speak Japanese, but that's an embarrassment to be seen out in public with. I feel embarrassed. I'm not even Japanese when I hang out with newer foreigners here. Gotta be real, but I see with both black and white people, so I'm not even gonna say it's a black thing. When I hang out with foreigners here, I cannot tell you how many times I've been embarrassed. I've slightly talked about these things before, whether it be getting on a train with, a white guy that decides, hey, let's binge drink on the train. And, you see Japanese people do it every once in a while, but I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be what you're doing that, or people that don't feel the need to wear a mask because there's nobody sitting next to them. Like, I've had friends do crap like that really piss me off. And you also have, friends that don't understand what it means to use an inside voice, or that don't understand, okay, like, this is not the place to take off your shoes. Like, we're on a train. Like, come on, people. And yes, we see Japanese people do crazy, weird stuff all the time, but you know how that is when you're the minority, when you're foreigner, you're looked at underneath the magnifying glass. And don't get me wrong, when those Japanese people are doing it too, it also equally irritates and annoys people, but people just feel more shy about being, direct and honest about their feelings towards it. They feel like they can get away with being angry and showing a pissed off face with you as a foreigner. So, just want to throw that out there. Not excusing anything, just explaining it. So, I feel embarrassed when I'm with people like that. It makes me be like, yeah, I'm not going to hang out with you again. And I normally do not. So I feel where they're coming from. Again, like, if you're really obnoxious, really loud, you're too clingy, you will run people away. A lot of you guys make friends with Japanese people or even date them, and you don't realize some of your behavior is not acceptable here. Like sending daily text messages, or, sending long paragraphs, like crap like that. Like, people don't like that type of stuff. Like, keep your messages short and simple. Don't go into a ton of detail. They don't need a lot of backstory as to why you're feeling the way you are, what happened to your dog. Or, they don't want to hear that. They don't. They really don't. Compare how they talk to you and the messages that they send you to what you send them. That will give you an idea as to how you should communicate with your friends here. And also think about where you're going to meet your friends. If all of your friends are coming from somewhere like, I actually have made friends off of Tinder, and I do still use it to this day. But if all of your friends are from a platform like Tinder, the reality is most of them are just trying to sleep with you. So yeah, you're not going to make genuine friends that way. If most of your friends are people from Paris, yeah, those girls are just trying to marry you. They're not trying to be your best friend and teach you Japanese. Use your brain. If that's what you're okay with and that's what you want, then I'm not going to fight, I'm not going to argue it. Like I always say, I'm not your mama, but I am here to give you, sorry, I'm so itchy. I'm here to give you advice and tell you that you have to think about where you're meeting the people that you do and what you're expecting from them. Again, do not confuse being used for free English for, normal friends. That's not what I'm getting at. But what I am saying is, don't expect your friends to want to hang out with you as often as you would your American friends, or expect them to talk to you as much as you do, or about the stuff that you did back in the US. This is not that country. You have to get used to this culture, just like how you wouldn't go to an interview and get offended because the boss doesn't shake your hand. You understand that, a slight bow is more common. But of course, with you being a foreigner, they're more than likely going to go to shake. I've gone on dates with people that went to go shake my hand, not realizing that this is not appropriate to do. But you know what I mean? It's like just little, technically you could shake hands on a date, but it's just weird to me. Like, I prefer to just, hi, nice to meet you. But anyway, back on subject. We're not going to talk about that. Yeah, like, just remember, different culture, different rules. Everything is not a matter of you just being this monster and everybody's afraid of you, but consider your personality. And personality most certainly does matter. Looks can make people want to befriend you, but personality will keep your friends. And we will talk about personality and looks in dating in my next video. I want to go over that too. So that's pretty much it. If you didn't get anything else out of this video, basically what I was saying was, Japanese friends are not American friends. You cannot hold the same standard. When you miss hanging out with American friends, you miss being able to gossip and be close and laugh and be loud and get on ignorant. Hang out with foreigners. They are so easy to meet and find here in Japan. And when you are tired of hanging out with them and you want to work on your Japanese and you want to feel closer, more assimilated, and involved in the culture, study Japanese. Hang out with your Japanese friends. Understand and accept the fact that you will get different things from different groups of friends. Just like how you accept the fact your relationships, you get different things. I do not expect my boyfriend or my husband to act like how my father and mother did. There's a different level of love that my spouse provides me with versus what my parents provide me with. Do you know what I mean? There's a different level of love that I get from, my students versus my friends. From my neighbors, like, you get what I mean? Like, there's different levels. You can talk to people differently based off of what they provide you, based off of what they're okay with, etc. You adapt and you adjust. You don't expect everything out of everyone. There will never be a perfect friend, a perfect person here in Japan. It just doesn't happen. And the same can be said for a relationship. You cannot find every perfect quality in one person. There's going to be something wrong. They're either going to be ugly, their personality is going to be bad, they're going to be an airhead. Something is going to be amiss. No matter how perfect they may seem, there's something wrong. Doesn't make them a bad person, but you have to accept, okay, yes, I really do like hanging out with this person, but they're not the best to have deep conversation with. I prefer to, have this conversation with this friend instead. Yes, I really love my partner, they're romantic, thoughtful, whatever, but when I want to have a good laugh and be silly, I want to hang out with my friends instead. My boyfriend doesn't have my sense of humor. He's not petty like I am. Like, you get what I mean? Like, you find different people that meet those needs that you have. Simple as that. It doesn't mean you get rid of them or you cheat on your partner or in the friendship or relationship or whatever. But you accept they are not that person. This is not their personality. This is not their culture. I crave, want, and need these things, so don't deny yourself those things, but you accept the fact, sorry, I have to go elsewhere to get my needs met. We ain't talking about sexually. I'm talking about mentally, relationship-wise, of any type of relationship. I gave a real example of myself. I have a good sense of humor. I like to watch silly videos. I love cringe compilations. I love watching people get splashed by puddles and just random weird stuff. And I like dark humor, etc. My partner cannot understand American humor. So do I decide I have to try to find the single Japanese man in all of Japan out of the 120 million plus people here? I have to find the one person that can understand American humor, 6 feet tall, make 6 figures a year. Like, look at how the whole list that you have that you're going to check off. You're asking for too much. It is not reasonable to ask for a Japanese person to have an American personality, for a Japanese person to have the American mindset of how do you make friends. Don't get me wrong, again, I am not saying that I agree with the way it's done here. I'm saying this is how it's done. And until you understand those are the rules and that's how the game is played, you are not going to make friends here. You have to accept that. There's a difference between people that are not going to have deep conversation with you because it's not their culture and they feel uncomfortable, and people that are just using you for free English lessons. I'm not saying to settle for fake friends. I'm saying get used to what the definition of a friend is. Friends are mostly here for business purposes. People make friends to have connections, to have seat fillers. That's how it really goes here. In America, we make friends to help ourselves mentally, to feel good, to vent to comfort us. And then that's also what they do. They act as seat fillers and people to go to parties with, etc. In Japan, it's pretty much just the latter. You are just somebody to go out drinking with, just somebody to go to a party with. Just somebody so that I could say, hey, I'm not alone. I have someone to talk to. Japanese people are still social beings. So, yeah. And then, of course, just simply getting out. A lot of you guys that complain about, oh, I don't have friends, etc. You spend your whole day on forums on Facebook or here on YouTube. Of course you don't have no damn friends. Or you live in the middle of nowhere. Well, of course you don't have any friends. You chose a position where you're out in the countryside. Who are you going to meet besides the 3 people that work with you? So do whatever you want to. Again, just giving you my own 2 cents, my own advice. Understand that you are in Japan. Culture is different here. Japanese people probably initially feel pretty uncomfortable when they come to the U.S. They might be overwhelmed and happy about the friendliness they deal with there, but having to get used to people being so blunt and direct when they talk to them, that has to be, culture shock. Like, oh my God, how rude, or that's too personal, or wow, like, You really just say that to me? That's to throw them off too. So it goes both ways. I don't agree with how it's done here. Like I said, I do believe that the way that people make friends here leads to more, issues of people ending their lives and wanting to end their lives and things like that. I'm not in agreement with it, but I am saying this is how it goes. And because of that, you have to get used to that. And if you're not okay with that, then you're going to have to accept the fact that you're going to have either A, all foreign friends, or B, people that normally have all foreign friends tend to leave Japan because it just doesn't work out for you. You're basically isolated in a bubble. And if you're only going to hang out with foreigners, you're only going to date them, only going to be friends with them, why even stay in Japan? You can do what you want to do. There's reasons to still stay here. But in my opinion, I feel like you're missing something if you're only going to be friends with foreign people. I don't care about who you date, but you should, get used to being around Japanese people. Learn something from their culture. Don't just try to push everything from your country, your culture onto them. Learn something from it. You don't have to agree with it, but learn from it. Assimilate it. Try something new. You don't have to love it to try it. You don't have to agree with it to accept it, to respect it, to follow it. It's not unreasonable to ask for you to be a little more relaxed with how often you expect to talk. Be a little more relaxed with the information that you want to or choose to share. So, that's it for this video. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. I wish you the best of luck with making friends here in Japan. If you want more advice on making friends, I've made several different videos talking about how to make friends in Japan, where to meet them at. Please check out those videos. I have an entire playlist on my YouTube channel's homepage. Other than that, I would appreciate it if you would like this video if you haven't already and subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can also follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Comic95. I have a Snapchat and TikTok at Comic the Savior, and you can read my blog at comic95.com, and I also have a Facebook fan page at Comic95 the Savior. The links for everything are down in the description box below. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you'll watch another video. Bye.